For more on the path forward for Sri Lanka, let's speak with the country's Foreign Minister, Ali Sabry. He joins us from the Asian Development Bank annual meeting in Incheon, South Korea, which he's now attending. Mr. Sabry, the ADB projecting that things will get worse for the economy this year before seeing gradual recovery in 2024. And your central bank has the same view, looking at 3.3% next year. But the IMF forecasting growth of less than half that at 1.5%. So where is your optimism coming from?
Thank you very much for having me. And I think optimism coming from several encouraging factors. I think inflation is under control, tourism had bounced back, and dollar has stabilized. We have, in fact, about 11.2% gain on dollar, which has helped us to stabilize the prices. And then with that, of course, the people have been sending, the migrant workers are sending their money through the normal channels. So with that, there is a glimmer of hope for us, but we are not out of the woods. But we are also very happy that the multilateral agencies like IMF, World Bank, ADB had given us a lending hand. So with that, I think, yes, this year there could be a recession further. But from next year onward, you should be able to see some sort of growth.
Mr. Sabry, you mentioned inflation, and your central bank's recent annual report outlines how wages failed to keep up with the soaring cost of everything from food to fuel last year. How does the government plan to address these issues to get to your 2024 target, also bearing in mind social safety nets?
Yeah, we have a plan probably with the debt restructuring. If the debt restructuring goes on with the sustainability addressed by the IMF, we should be able to get a debt relief in terms of about 17 billion. And we are looking at by 2027 debt sustainability to return, and then with that probably we'll have access to the financial market. By that time, we should be able to restart paying our debts as an obligation apart from the multilaterals. So apart from that, as I told you earlier, we are looking forward of a resurgence of the tourism, which we have seen glimmer of hope on that part, and we also see some sort of investment returning from some of the countries. So with that, hopefully our economy should bounce back coming 2024 onwards.
Touching a bit more on the IMF bailout, Mr. Sabry, and the rollout plans, are you on track to completing the debt restructuring process in time for the first review in September? That's about 4 months away.
Yeah, fingers crossed that we have made a lot of progress as far as the prior actions are taken. Before the EFF was approved, all the prior actions, except some minor ones, have been controlled. And as you very clearly see, we have introduced price-sensitive, cost-reflective pricing in so many areas. And SOE reforms are on the card, and tax reforms have come into play. So there is a sense of stability in the country, and we have eliminated all sorts of queues and the shortages. But going forward, debt restructuring is very, very important. Now we are in the business end of it. Luckily for us, all of our friends have come forward to help us, and there is a common ground platform which has been proposed by the Paris Club, India and Japan. And we have also invited China to come on board on that, or otherwise we will continue to discuss with them. One thing is very clear on our mind, that any debt restructuring should be equal treatment for all. It has to be a kind of a universal same application or debt relief or otherwise. So we are confident, just like we managed to secure the debt restructuring assurances from our friends and the creditors, we should be able to restructure it, because that's good for everybody, because without debt restructuring, our debts are not going to be sustainable. With that, we will not be getting proper investment, and that's bad for the investors as well as to the creditors. So the shorter the time period we lingering of discussing that, better for everyone. So everybody understand that the longer it takes for debt restructuring, the bad for the creditors and bad for the investors. So all our investors and creditors do understand that. I know some tough negotiations are around the corner, but so far the signs are encouraging from our friends, both bilateral and otherwise.
Mr. Sabry, you need capable people to keep the economy going, but the economic crisis has fueled a mass exodus of skilled and semi-skilled professionals of prime working age out of the country. I was looking at data from the Sri Lankan Foreign Employment Bureau. It says more than 300,000 Sri Lankans left the country in 2022, the highest in history. So what plans do you have to retain talent and to restore confidence in those who've left to come back and to help the country build back to a better place?
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult task for us to do immediately. I think for some period of time, this exodus will take place because looking forward for opportunities outside. But it's our duty to create a situation which is conducive for them to come back and to retain who are here. But one good thing about Sri Lanka with the universal free education and free health, we keep on producing that talents in our university levels and from the education's level. So I'm sure, though these some of our most important brains are leaving the country, they will be replaced by the younger generation. And hopefully by the time we generate investment and start new projects and all those things, some of those people who have gone will come back. And it has happened all over in various parts of the world. And if you look at IIT in India in 1980s and 90s, more than 70-80% of their graduates went out of the country. Now it takes time thereafter for them to come back. So I'm sure there will be linked to the international world and to invite investment. So this is challenging time. But if you look at it, even in 2014, we had 309,000 Sri Lankan went out of the country. And last year, it's about 314,000. So that has been a phenomena for a long period of time. These are challenges these developing countries will face because that kind of talent has so much of appeal in various parts of the world, and people will go. So until we bring back our economy on track and provide that opportunity for them to come back and to retain them, we are aware of it. And with new investment coming in and with the opportunities of port city being built and other investment coming in, tourism is taking shape. We are confident we should be able to retain some of them and invite some of them to come back in somewhere in the midterm.
Mr. Sabry, talking about that port investment, Beijing will invest even more money in the logistics complex at Colombo Port. It is your first major foreign investment since the default. How confident are you of the benefits this will bring to the economy versus the risks that some say could leave you more indebted to Beijing?
Then we don't agree with that because most of these investment are not debt free. That is not, we are not taking any debt. These are investment, in fact. So in fact, if you look at that, 70% of that investment comes from the Beijing, and then 20% by the Sri Lanka Ports Authority and 10% of Sri Lankan company of the particular project what you are talking. And the port city itself is not a single rupee or a dollar had been borrowed on that. That's an investment. That's the kind of investment we are looking forward. I don't think in the short to medium term we are not going to borrow any longer and go and invest on infrastructure projects which are not conducive for return, and that there is a possibility for us to repay. So we are very careful. I think we have learned our lesson, but we are open for investment. We are open for investment from any part of the world because that's the Sri Lanka's legacy. We are a friendly country. We are open to do business with east, south, and west. So that is how we are. We are working with many countries, and this investment will eventually help us to project ourselves as a strong player in the region and also to create employment. And with that, the foreign currency inflows into the country. So I'm sure on the long run, that's what we are looking forward to. We are very careful of taking debt and going for infrastructure projects which are not going to be fruitful for the country's economy and have a steady revenue path for us to repay.
Mr. Sabry, I want to move to the Ukraine war, which has wide-reaching implications for your country, including on tourism and disruptions in supply chains, so the impact on food and energy security as well. You need new alternatives. So where else are you looking to diversify your food and energy security?
Yeah, that's a very difficult situation for all the entire world, and we are traditionally had been sourcing our energy requirement basically through the Middle Eastern countries. Of course, the coal had been coming from Russia and the other areas. We are looking at alternative, but in the meantime, what we are trying to do is to quickly have a good energy mix where we will have more renewable energy. We have a target by 2030 to have 70% of our energy from the renewable energy, because being an island, we have very good catchment area for wind power and solar power with the tropical climate. So we are right now working very hard on quickly re-establishing that process. But in the meantime, we also have had a good relationship with all the countries, and we are looking forward for alternative sources of supply on the short term, particularly because of the electricity generation. 35% of our electricity generation still rely on coal. So in the recent past, we have been looking for alternative supply routes also.
Mr. Sabry, your government also banking on a revival in tourism, but some analysts say the Ukraine crisis could affect hopes for this because it could keep Russian and Ukrainian tourists away. Those are two key markets for you. How are you reviving tourism, and how crucial is it to your overall strategy to navigate the economic crisis?
Tourism is central for our recovery. It's one of the lowest hanging fruit. We are really relying on tourism. In 2018, that's the highest number of tourists who came to Sri Lanka. We got about 2.4 million tourists, bringing about 4.6 billion US dollar worth of remittance to the country, which has come down drastically. But we have seen during the last 6 to 8 months, there is a continuous inflow of tourists coming in. You are correct. Traditionally, the Russians and the Ukrainians have been among the first 10 countries as a means of tourism. But we also have strong support from India, the Western countries like Europe, England, France, Germany. There is a steady flow of tourists coming from Indian market is opening up. So many Indians are traveling. We are just around the corner for them. Chinese have decided and designated Sri Lanka as one of the approved country to travel. So we look forward for Chinese travelers to come. Japan had been one of our traditional market. So we are confident that despite those challenges with Ukraine and Russians have an issue, Russians have been steadily coming to Sri Lanka. I think there's an opportunity for Sri Lanka in that sense, because it's not easy for them to travel some other part of it. So we consider there is a small opportunity for us. Tourism seems to be good, all indication what we understand, and most of the travel agencies as well as sites and promoting agencies have identified Sri Lanka as one of the very good market for coming few months, given the depreciation of the currency and the economy of the destination. So we are confident that Sri Lankan tourism industry should do well, and it has shown the signs of doing well during the last 6 to 8 months.
Mr. Sabry, on the issue of conflict, I want to look at the wider great power rivalry in the region. With China investing in the Colombo port, there's an additional concern, largely from the US and India, about China giving a naval advantage in the Indian Ocean with greater access to Sri Lanka's ports. How will your country navigate this power rivalry? And allay fears your ports could be used for military purposes.
No, that's out of the question. We will not allow anyone to use Sri Lanka as a military hub or a port for anyone. That is very, very clear. What we have is a commercial arrangement. We are open to do business with North and South. Most of these projects are we basically tender. So people who are interested are open for them to come and invest on that. So it's important for us. We as traditionally Sri Lanka had never ever taken sides and been part of any blocs. So that we want to continue to remain so. We are open for business with everyone. We have explained that we have excellent relationship with the West and with India and also with China. So most of these relationships are commercial, And we have repeatedly told that we will not allow our country to be used as a port which could threaten any country. So we want a peaceful atmosphere around Indian Ocean, in the Indian Ocean and in the region. We will contribute towards that. That doesn't mean that we could just shut down investment from anyone. So if you look at Colombo Port, investment are there. Adanis are building one terminal. Chinese are operating another one. They're expanding it. We have given another option for Japanese and the US to invest on that. So we are open to do business with everybody, like any other countries in the region. If you look at even India and China, among themselves are part of the BRICS. So therefore, just like that, we are also open to do business with everybody and everyone. We are doing it in a very transparent manner. We are engaging with all the partners in the region. As I told again, what our interest is, a peaceful region, a vibrant commerce and free navigation, promoting trade, friendship, connectivity, and tourism in the region. So in that sense, as a responsible partner of the international community, we will re-emphasize the fact that we will not in any way contribute towards conflict or allow anyone to use our land and our country to create any military bases or military kind of infrastructure within our waters or outside our region.
Mr. Sabry, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much. And we were speaking with Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister, Ali Sabry.
Thank you very much.
He was live at the Asian Development Bank annual meeting in Incheon, South Korea.